Yo, yo, yo. This is Candy B Knittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today is going to be kind of Candy B spinning, Candy B processing wool, Candy B drum carding. I want to get y'all caught up with everything that's happening with my fiber spinning side of things. And so hopefully I can stay on task, stay on time. I often get very focused in on finished objects and like, okay, I did this. Here it is, and not always really great at showing the process. And so I want to kind of take you from my least, the wool that's farthest away from being yarn all the way to my fiber that's the closest to being yarn. So first thing I want to show y'all, I got those fleeces back in October at Shenandoah Fiber Fest, and I've been slowly but surely working through washing them and carding them. And the first one I'm going to show you, this is my coop worth I've been working on. It's a white, I wouldn't say raw fleece because I've washed it once already, but it's still got a bit of lanolin in it, so I'm washing it again. But I am not the most, first of all, I would call myself a beginner spinner and even more beginning fleece processor person. So I tend to be a bit impatient. I'm still learning a lot. And so probably I did not get it as clean as I wanted to the first time. And I'm not as aggressive with skirting as I could be. And skirting is just taking out all the best parts, separating all the most intact locks, sorting them by length, sorting them by texture. The texture on a sheep can be very different around the face versus in the body. Taking out any shorter second cuts, taking out any vegetable matter, anything else that you don't want in your finished wool. I tend to kind of try to hold on to as much as possible, which can lead to issues when you start trying to card and spin. And so I'm trying to save myself some work in the long run, but still learning. So I just pulled this out as an example of one of the locks. And what I'm doing now is going through and taking out any shorter bits, trying to separate certain textures out. I'm also the first time I process these, I've talked about this fleece before in a hat that I'm working on, and I just kind of washed the fleece and then ran it through a drum carder, and I got a lot of neps, and I was like, maybe there's a lot of second cuts, but I was watching, I forget who it was, I think it was Taji of Tangles and Starlight, and they were talking about how if you don't open up the tips of your locks, sometimes that can cause neps. So you can see how, this is like curled and kind of tight at this is the root, this is the part that would grow out of the sheep, this is the part that's facing the world. And so I've been taking my hand carder and just opening those up a little bit so that when I run them through my drum carder, they're not getting caught up and causing more neps. And so what are I keep all of my fleeces in just big old pillowcases. And I'm taking the locks out of the pillowcases, opening them up, and kind of creating just a cloud of fluff. And this is what I will wash with some power scour, and then once it's dry, put it through my drum carder and create a bat, and then spin the yarn. My ultimate plan with this yarn in particular, because I have 5 pounds of this and it's white, is to play around with dyeing and then play around with blending the dye. I have some Kool-Aid and some Easter egg dye that I want to play around with, and so I think this will be good for that. And then, getting all my primary colors and then using my drum carder to create different colors. And I think that'll be fun for that because I have a lot of this to play with, and it's a pretty I got 5 pounds. I paid $78 for 5 pounds, so fairly economical. You know, nice workhorse, long lock structure, about 6-inch long locks, and so I think it's gonna be fairly good to blend with other things, use with other things. There's nothing really. I'm just, I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of generic in a sense. Like I could blend this very easily with a commercial yarn. So that's that. My other fleece that I got back in 2023 is a Gotland Shetland blend. And this has been through, I've washed it. I did the thing where I was telling you I opened up all the locks. And this morning I spent some time running this through my drum carder. And so this is a bat that I rolled up into a nest. And so this is what this looks like now. So if you can, it's kind of like a cooking show where they roll out the cookies and then they put them in the oven and then they had the cookies already baked. So if you can imagine, that's needs to be washed, needs to be flicked and run through the drum carder. This is after it comes out of the drum carder. This fleece is much more fine in texture. And so I would want to do something a little bit more special with this. And I have about 2 pounds of this. And my plan with this is I want to spin it first. Well, I told you I wanted to play with that other one on my drum carder, blending different colors. I want to spin this first. And my plan this year is I want to grow indigo in my garden. And so I want to spin this into yarn and then create a vat of indigo dye and dye skeins of yarn of this. And I think it's going to, like, I'm imagining something really special in my head, just because I don't know if you can tell that other fleece was fairly white and this one has a lot of gray in it and even little bits of dark, almost black hairs in it. So I'm very, very happy with this. It's very soft too. And so I could see this being a really like drapey shawl or something like that. I do not know anything about making a vat of indigo. I've been reading a lot about it over the winter. And I've narrowed down where I'm going to buy the plants. I don't think I'm going to grow it from seed. It involves, what do you call that? It has to be pH balanced in a certain way. And there's soda ash and there's other chemicals you have to add. And when I start reading stuff like that, I can get very overwhelmed doing research on things like that. And so usually the best thing for me is just to dive in and give it a try. The other thing that I ran through my drum carder this morning, I told y'all last week that I got a new crafting table, new storage set up in my room. And one of the best parts of this new surface I have is that previously, if I wanted to set up my drum carder, if I wanted to set up my ball winder or my Swift, I had to clean off the entire kitchen table and set up my own shop in there. So not only am I dealing with, that's where my family eats their dinner, that's where the kids do their crafts and things. I have to do the extra work of getting the whole area cleaned up, and then that area is pretty much off limits to anyone else while I'm doing that. And I do like to be mindful of the fact that this is my hobby, and, not everyone in my house signed up for this. And so the best thing about my craft table is it has a nice lip on it that I can actually attach my ball winder, attach my drum carder. And not only that, my kitchen table, you can imagine, it's not bar height. It's fairly low. It's for sitting in a regular chair. And so I'm kind of bent over it when I have things attached to it. And now I have a nice counter height table in my craft room. And it's a lot more ergonomic to drum card that way. Still don't want to spend too much time drum carding, but I feel like my back will thank me in the morning. This is the other thing I ran through my drum carder this morning, and this is Green Goat Ranch. They have carding kits, and they did a collection for Animal Crossing. And so if you are an Animal Crossing fan, this might remind you of Meringue the rhinoceros, who is one of my favorites. When I saw this, I really was like, oh, like I think I've said before, I was like, oh, I don't really like to just buy things just because it has a certain name attached to it. But when I saw Animal Crossing, I was like, oh, if she does meringue, I need meringue. And she did meringue. And this is Rambouillet, faux cashmere, and bamboo. And so the Rambouillet is this very light pink color. And if you're able to see very closely, the lighting in here isn't awesome. But there's bits of green, there's bits of orange, and there's bits of white all blended into this. And that would be, meringue is a white rhinoceros with accents of pink and orange, and kind of looks like sherbet almost. So that's what I was working on this morning on a lovely rainy day. The next thing I want to show you, if we're going from the rawest fleece to the most finished fleece, is I actually have a lot of plying I need to get done on my wheel. And the way I like to spin, I don't tend to, I'm still I just like to play around on my wheel. I'm not like I'm making this sweater, I need 8 pounds kind of person. So I just kind of just play it by ear. And what I like to do, I have one spinning wheel that has 4 bobbins. And so I like to fill up those 4 bobbins. Then I make center pull cakes from those bobbins, and then I ply the plies back onto the bobbins. And I find that works very well for me. I could go out and buy more bobbins, but I feel like that would only motivate me to have more things to ply, and I'm already at a point where I'm a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of things I have to ply. And the act of plying is very much different from the act of just spinning that initial ply. And so I have to be very mindful of my mood, and I'm like, I don't want to spend weeks on weeks on weeks plying and then have to do, or spinning and then weeks on weeks applying it together. So I think having less bobbins keeps me kind of organized and keeps me from being overwhelmed. The reason I also do that is because I was taught to always, I guess they call it rewinding, because what happens is if you are spinning short forward draw, I'm sitting here at my wheel, I'm pinching my fiber supply here, I'm not letting any twist up into my fiber supply, and I'm constantly smoothing and pulling the yarn out, smoothing it, pulling the fiber out and smoothing it. And so as you're loading that on the bobbin, you're smoothing all in one direction. Then we get to the end of this, and basically now you're backwards. So this is the last bit that I smoothed. And let me pull some out. And as I was spinning, I was smoothing this way. If I were to go to ply starting from this end, now I'm smoothing the opposite direction. So all of that work of getting comb top, spinning it in a worsted style, and that tends to create a more compressed, smooth, shiny yarn. Now I'm working against that entire technique, which, yeah, I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference if you knit a sweater and then 5 years from now what that sweater is going to look like. But considering the fact that I have a limited amount of bobbins already, I take the effort to already make it into a center pull cake, so I might as well start from the other end and then smooth in the same direction that I ply in the same motion that I spun the initial yarn with. So I have these two, which are another Green Goat Ranch, and these are the trash heap from Fraggle Rock. I think you're noticing that me and Green Goat Ranch, we're on the same wavelength with a lot of things. So she did Animal Crossing, I was like, oh yeah, meringue. She did Fraggle Rock, and I'm like, okay, I gotta have that trash heap. And so she does these plying pairs where there's two kind of, I wouldn't say complementary in the sense of the color wheel, but two colors that are very different but go well together. And so this was just kind of like a fun thing for me to do because it is a plying pair. I don't have to think too much about how, I don't have to be like, oh, am I going to spin it? Am I going to, it's like, oh, okay, spin this single, ply them together. And so I finished both of these, and so I'll cake these up and then spin them together on one bobbin. The other thing I have going on a bobbin, this is my third bobbin out of 4, and so you'll notice, kind of like how I like to have different types of knitting projects, I like to have different types of spinning projects. So this was, you know, still an indie dyer, but more on a, like, she told me the colors. She told me how to apply this. In the end, these colors will go with the rest of the collection, the Fraggle Rock collection. This is a Gotland I got, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing with this. I think I am going to do it 2-ply. And I don't know if y'all remember, I had those Valentine's Day spins I did. And I think that it's going to really pop against this dark gray background and maybe like the yolk of something. And this was a very interesting spin because this is, I believe, Rambouillet and maybe like Rambouillet and silk together in these. And then this is Gotland. And if y'all recall, this is a Gotland Shetland cross, which has a little bit more tooth to it, but this just pure dark gray Gotland, it's incredibly fine. I have its comb top, which I could do a short forward draw with it, but it just kind of kept falling apart on me. And I've always just done short forward draw because that's usually the first thing I learned on the spinning wheel. And that's when, you know, it's called the inchworm technique. You're pulling the yarn out, smoothing it back, pulling yarn out, smoothing it out. This is just very fine, and it, like, under the weight of itself, it just kind of comes apart very easily. And so I've been playing around with kind of teaching myself long draw, and putting in long draw, you're pulling it back like this and letting some twist up into the fiber supply. And that's been very helpful for me because otherwise it like I said, it really falls apart on me, or I get too much twist in it. And that this is what's considered a worsted prep. You know, all the fibers are combed in the same place, but just adding that little bit of air into it gives it a more like woolen finish, where I think it's going to lend itself well to the other fibers, especially if I do like a sweater or something like that with color work. It's going to like fluff up really nicely instead of just being really tightly compressed, kind of like I don't know if I can tell the difference. Let's see. Okay, so this is my comb top from Green Goat Ranch. And this is my comb top, the Gotland. And I can see it from here. Like, there's just a little bit more air, and then obviously it's just a hairier fabric. There's like just bits sticking out. And even like holding this, it's like squishy on the bobbin. Like, these are really kind of solid and they don't have a lot of give to them, but this, I have a lot of squish in it. So let's see. Actually, probably should do the one that's a different color so you can see the difference. Yeah, and this is, you know, the same spinner, just spinning a little bit differently. My default yarn is a little bit more, is on the thinner side. I'm a very tense person. I don't know if y'all can catch that yet, but yeah, this is a lot smoother, a lot thinner, a lot more tightly wound. This is a little bit thicker, has a little bit more air in it, a little bit less twist, a little bit less compression in it. And so those are my plies. I also have, I've shown y'all this before, so I'll just kind of gloss over it. I started doing, you know, the 100 days of drop spindle spinning, and I was doing the Into the World singles, and I finished all of that. I did not finish the 100 days, but what the 100-day challenge did for me was it really made me fall in love with drop spindle spindling. Like, I got I started drop spindling, and that was pretty much like, okay, that's a gateway into me getting my wheel. But going back to the drop spindle after getting my wheel, it just made me look at it in a whole new way. And so I did decide based on that I always want to have some sort of project on a drop spindle, and that's actually what this is going to be. This is going to be my next drop spindle situation because it is a very special fiber to me and I want to spend some time with it. And so this was from that. I still need to ply these together. I'm going to do a 3-ply with these just because they're all different fibers. And this is the Into the World fiber, by the way. So I did this. Then my next drop spindle project was I did a bat on my drum carder of all my leftover fiber from 2023. So every time I did a spinning project, I had a little bit of fluff here or there, or drum carder waste, things like that. And I just put it into a big old Ziploc bag. And I already started the Ziploc bag for 2024, but I did not bring it for some reason. But this is, I made a bat for 2023, and it's just a mixture of everything I spun in 2023. And I added some stellina for some sparkle, and so I have these. So it's just going to be like probably maybe 75 gram ball of yarn. And I'm going to do a 3-ply with these. And they were all in the drop spindle, and I just wound them off the drop spindle and made these little cakes. And so I'll pull them from the center and ply them that way. And yeah, that's that. That's why I want to play around with this on the drop spindle, because I want to chain ply as I go, called plying on the fly, because it is kind of annoying to have 4 or 5 drop spindles and then have to make cakes off the drop spindle. So if I do a 3-ply as I go, it'll save me a little bit of a headache, I guess. And this, yeah, just a tiny bit of sparkle. So that's all my plies. Oh, no, got more. These are, I have a support spindle, which a drop spindle, you're literally dropping the spindle. Support spindle has a little dish and you're spinning in there. And I was practicing on that, which I want to get back to. And so you can see this is like my beginner plies on that. Very loose, a lot of air, not a lot of twist. But I do want to ply these into something. So I have a whole bag of these that I'm going to probably just do a 2-ply with. So I think we're all caught up with everything I'm working on spinning wise. I don't have any new finished yarn to show you. Probably after I do the second bobbin of this Gotland, then I'm going to ply up everything, and hopefully in maybe 2 or 3 weeks I'll have everything plied up, wash it, and then I'll be able to show you the actual finished yarn. This is going to be more of a long-term project, the fleece. It's probably going to be months before you see that fleece again, but I will at least keep you caught up with the things that need to be plied. I tend to be rather feast or famine when it comes to the spinning wheel. Like I'll go hard for days on end, and then my body will need a bit of a rest. And so it's all as these seasons come together, and now I've tangled these plies together. What time is it? So I think I'm gonna leave it there. Are y'all spinners? I know a lot of y'all are knitters. I get a lot of people that watch my spinning videos, but I don't know if y'all are actually spinners. So let me know in the comments. Do you spin? How do you process your wool? Do you just buy comb top? I wouldn't say just, but do you buy comb top? Do you have a drum carder? Do you have hand carder? Do you have a sheep? Do you have a goat? Do you have a dog? A very long-haired dog? Let me know in the comments. Once again, this has been candibknittin. I'm Candy B. You can also find me on Instagram as @Rulude. You can email me candibknittin@gmail.com. Until next time, I I would say peace, but I have these, I have managed to really tangle these yarns together. And so until next time, bye bye.